Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I kind of wanted to talk about Star Citizen comparisons. Now, there has been a lot of discussion in the community and outside of the community, quite frankly, about uh, the video that you're seeing behind you, the Star Engine trailer. And I made a video about this not too long ago, but I wanted to talk about it again a little bit because of the discussion around a game like this and, CIG making a game like this. Now, obviously, um, you know, there's a lot of technical advances that still need to be implemented and added to the game. But I think a lot of people were kind of surprised by this video and a lot of the other content that came out during CitizenCon of what CIG is actually doing here. Because there has been, of course, years and years of development and people memeing on that, the game is never going to come out, the game is overly ambitious, Chris Roberts is addicted to scope creep and he's a perfectionist. And, slowly but surely, some of the vision is coming into fruition. And people are kind of finally turning the corner and they're opening their eyes to, hey, you know, they're doing something here. And it's not really even the discussion about, is this a scam or not? Is a game like this what people really want? And I think uh, that conversation is really interesting in the context of, everything else that's going on in the industry. Because when I made my initial video about this, about the engine reaction, there was a lot of pushback from people. People saying, a lot of other developers have already been doing a lot of this stuff. This tech is going to be outdated by the time, the game comes out. That type of, dialogue. And I don't think it's invalid. Okay, there are some things that obviously the devs need to do to make Star Citizen a real game. But in the context of the comparisons that you're seeing about Starfield and uh, the expectations people have about games coming out in the future, I think that conversation is a little bit more interesting because when people think about a space game, they're always bringing up No Man's Sky, they're bringing up Elite Dangerous as kind of like the benchmark for what you want out of a space game. And uh, now Starfield is, kind of spoken about a little bit in that, conversation, but a little bit less so. And I think obviously the conversation is going to lean more towards Star Citizen because uh it's a sim game. It's, how should I put this? It's one of those games that you think is going to be a niche, but then also has the potential to be a huge game and totally change the genre. Okay? And right now people aren't really ready to look at it like that. But that's really kind of the direction that it's heading in. And if you look at kind of all the other games, it's really hard to compare it to the other space games. It's really hard to compare it to other games. Okay, um, Star Citizen is a sandbox MMO, um, and really kind of what's more popular now is kind of that theme park MMO. So a lot of people look at everything that's on display here and they're like, okay, the game doesn't have any content, the game is boring, because they're coming from a, an RPG, uh, a theme park RPG MMO background. They kind of, when they think in RPG mode essentially. So for a game to be an MMO, it has to be an RPG. But that's not actually true. There are sandbox MMOs, and sandbox MMOs were really at the forefront of the genre before, you know, large contenders like WoW came into play, you know, with games like Final Fantasy 11. And the game that this game most commonly gets compared to is Star Wars Galaxies. And Star Wars Galaxies was really that game that you could go in, get into, and, you know, do almost anything. And later on in the game, they added, you know, a lot more um RPG elements to kind of make it more like WoW. And the game really died. The community really didn't like the changes that they were making. So WoW is kind of like its own beast, in my personal opinion. Okay, there's absolutely a place for, you know, theme park MMOs, but really, to do a space game, in my opinion, it kind of has to be a sandbox. Because the genre, okay? Space is so expansive. If you look at something like a fantasy game, we know what that is, right? You play as the hero, you fight powerful enemies, and you know, the goal is prestige and honor, and, you know, to be this renowned warrior or whatever, the greatest there ever was. You are the star of the show, essentially. But space is not really like that. It doesn't really uh the scale can't be understood if you're powerful. Okay, and that's where I think you know, maybe I'm gonna compare it to Starfield a little bit, is that with a lot of the fast travel, with a lot of the, you know, space magic, and you know, you're the chosen one kind of attitude, you feel bigger than you should be in a space game, essentially. In a space game, the game should make the player feel small and insignificant. A lot of people are saying, well, you know, I don't want to spend, you know, 15 minutes riding the train. I don't want to, you know, uh, trip and die falling down the stairs. That's too brutal. The That's, it's a simulation game, it's a sandbox game, all this type of stuff. But if you're going to make a space game, you want it to be like that, because that is the best way to sell the scale of the universe, the scale of space. Star Citizen is not the largest space game out there by any means. Basically all the other space games are larger in terms of, you know, technical kilometers that you can go. Like Elite Dangerous, you know, fully represents the Milky Way galaxy. Elite Dangerous is absolutely massive. Um, but what makes Star Citizen still feel so large, even though it's only one star system, is because the universe humbles you. Okay? And in reality, it's not just space that makes space. Like, you know, we've all heard of space-time continuum. The biggest part, the biggest thing that makes space is time. Time is like space and time are like a singular character. You cannot make a space game without time penalties, in my personal opinion. Again, it's just my opinion. But taking that long on the train, taking a long time in quantum travel, you know, being a fragile speck of dust on a planet, you know, compared to the whole grand scheme of things, that's important to sell, because you make the player feel in awe of where they are. Okay, if you're all powerful, you can go from one side of the star system to the next. You haven't traveled to any space, and the key word here is space. Okay, space is only present in the context of time. Okay, if it doesn't take you a long time to cover a large space, well, it doesn't feel like a large space, now does it? The only thing that can make something feel like a large space is the time it takes you to cover that space, is perspective. Okay, Without perspective, you cannot sell scale. If and there are really cool museums like that where, you know, you you walk into this room and it looks like everything is small, and then you walk to the other side of the room and you look small and everything looks big. I don't know if you guys have seen, those pictures on social media of people going to those perspective museums. But it's a great way to understand space and scale, is because you need perspective to be able to understand what you're seeing, understand what you're perceiving as a human being. So if you want to sell space, if you want to sell this scale, the player needs to slow down. The player needs to be powerless. The player needs to be, you know, kind of forced to do all of these very methodical things, because that way they can perceive everything that's going around them directly, instead of, okay, if I want to go to a planet, I just press a button. How can you perceive the scale of the space if that's your experience? Okay, if you're driving across the country, it reminds you how big America is. You take America into context. A lot of people, they spend time in their own town, in their own city, doing their own thing, and they don't really realize how big their country is. They don't realize how big the world around them actually is, until you start to travel and you do things. So, in my personal opinion, yes, I think Star Citizen needs to be a sandbox style MMO. It needs to be something that has a lot of those penalties, a lot of those time penalties. You have to take the train, you have to fly to the atmosphere, there's no fast travel, that sort of thing. Because it's the main character of the story. Space is the main character of the story, but not space in terms of planets and stars, space in terms of scale. Okay, this is a space game, not in terms of galaxies and star systems. This is a space game in terms of scale. You feel where you are, and that level of immersion is, in a space game, has never really been done before. Okay, now, uh, you look at a game like EVE Online, for instance. This is basically, there's a lot of similarities between Star Citizen and EVE Online, kind of how the star systems are linked with these, sort of jump points. The vision for that game, in my opinion, as an MMO, is something that isn't that far off from Star Citizen. And obviously, I want to talk about economy and that type of thing in a different video. But in my opinion, a lot of people look at EVE Online as something that is niche because it is difficult. No, I don't think EVE Online is niche because it's difficult. I think EVE Online is niche because it has a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, but it doesn't have all of it. Okay, that on foot experience, that now it doesn't do a bad job of selling the scale, but what a lot of people want is that kind of that overarching space game that really does everything. And uh can that game be made? uh you know CIG is trying to do that. CIG is actually trying to make that game that technically does it all, and that takes a long time. That's not an easy thing to do. uh is another company gonna do something like Star Citizen? Well, you look at games coming out right now, and you take it back to mobile games making this amount of money, and people say this about Star Citizen all the time. Star Citizen is the most expensive game ever made. take the longest amount of time in development, all this stuff. Uh, but the reality is, you look at these mobile games, they're pulling in millions of dollars, billions of dollars, even. Um, they're making a lot of money, and people are spending money all the time on them. Star Citizen making $600 million. That's over the course of 10 years, 10, 11 years. These mobile games are making that in a year. So from my perspective, I think that another dev, other studios are highly incentivized to, you know, chase those types of profits, especially if they're a publicly traded company. Okay. And it's not that, in my opinion, they want to monetize, it's that they have investors, obviously, that they have to account for, that they have to say, okay, this is the time limit that the game is going to be developed in. You give me your money, and in this time frame I will give you, this kind of return on your investment. So they can't spend 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years to make the game. They have to make it within a certain window. And then you look at the budget, they're like, okay, I'm building this game with a finite investment budget. Let's say you have, $500 million, $500 million to make a game. Uh, you start off the development of that game, but 3 years in, you're at $400 million, and you're like, okay, I have $100 million left over. What do? Well, you have to kind of rush the game out, because you have no more money, and everything has been taking so long that the investors are now wondering, hey, what's going on with this investment? We want, some type of accountability here. So it puts another company, it puts other development studios in a very interesting position, and it puts CIG in a very interesting position with Star Citizen. They have that ability to essentially have an infinite budget, because they have this kind of shippable product. I mean, of course, Star Citizen, the Persistent Universe, is not a release game, but it's a shipped out product in a certain extent. And they're making money on that with events like, IAE and Fleet Week, and ship sales and all this type of stuff. And if they can continually make that money, they can continually develop the game. And there's no real time limit on, when it has to be released. So they could put in all of these features that, another development studio, if they kind of run into this wall developing this thing, they might have to ask for more money, or do something else before the game comes out. They can't sell it up front and then develop the game like CIG can. So again, I think that puts CIG in a very interesting position to actually accomplish this crazy idea. And in my opinion, they you look at the responsibility you have to deliver on your vision, okay? And I think Chris Roberts and the team at CIG take this very seriously. They want to make this the best game that they can, because they have the power to do it. If any developer really is positioned well to pull this crazy idea off, it's CIG, in my opinion. Okay, because of their monetization, because of their corporate structure, because of their background, because of the community support, because of all of the momentum that they already have. Like, again, if another development studio says, okay, we're gonna make a Star Citizen clone starting right now, Star Citizen has such a head start on that development. 10 years, let's say that new development studio has a window of 5 years. Well, the amount of features that's going to get added to Star Citizen in the 5 years that game is in development, by the time that game comes out, Star Citizen will be 5 years ahead. So, in my personal opinion, it's at a point now where another developer might have to play catch up to really put out something like this, you know? Again, you look at something like Unreal. Unreal is an amazing engine. I don't want to take anything away from that, you know? What Epic has accomplished with that engine is, nothing short of miracles in terms of, the technology, where it's been and where it's going. They announced a bunch of new features coming off 2024. Unreal Engine 5 is doing incredible stuff. But developers still have to take that engine and they have to do something with it. Let's say you're a developer of a game like this and you want to, make a game like Star Citizen. Now, Unreal is getting a percentage of that sale because you're using their engine. You're licensing it. With CIG owning their engine, they don't have to pay Unreal any part of their profit. And then let's say you want to put that on Steam. Okay, Steam is the place that everyone buys games on. It has the most eyes on it. Steam takes 30%. 30% of all sales. You see, Starfield on Steam, $70. Steam's getting 30% of that. So the way you look at that is with CIG, they have their own launcher. They're not paying a marketplace any percentage of their sales. They're not paying an engine any percentage of their sales. All of that money goes directly to them. Okay. And if you look at it in that context, okay, you trying to build a game like this, you have to share all that money that you're making. How much money is left for you to actually develop the game? And then you look at something like server costs. You look at, the developers you're going to have to pay to make all these custom assets. I mean, everything you're seeing in the background here has been made by a 3D modeler, a tech artist. All of these things to make, these windmills spin as you're flying past them, that type of stuff. So this technology, a lot of people look at it and are like, okay, that's easy. You know, people have been doing this for a long time. It's not really that simple. Unreal Engine 5 is an amazing engine, but you're still the quality of games is that is coming out with Unreal Engine is it's really impressive, but they're not doing everything. They're still having that. They're still taking advantage of a minimized scope to realistically put the game out, at some point. But CIG doesn't really have to do that. They can, expand the scope, add in the gameplay features that the players really want because they're trying to make that game, you know? And, things like destructibility environments, that's not something that they ever promised the players before, but it's something that they're adding in now. And you look at that and you're like, oh, that's scope creep. But why not? This is the game that we've all always wanted. Let's go all the way and just do all of the things. I'm not saying that another development studio won't be able to make a game like Star Citizen, okay? But realistically, I think CIG has the best chance to make a game like Star Citizen. And that's what they are, and that's what, I'm most excited about. I think, obviously this was a complete rant video, but I think the Star Engine demo means a lot of things simply because, this is the turning point. This is the point where we realize that Star Citizen could be that game. And this is our, I don't want to say this is our one opportunity to take advantage of that. Anyway, guys, yeah, that was just a little rant video. Uh, I want to talk about this because I think it's an interesting discussion that's happening in the gaming community about a game like this. And I think that, you know, if CIG can really pull it off, do what they say in the next 12 months, this is going to be the game to set that benchmark of space games. What do we want out of a space game? What a space game should be, kind of the wow of space games. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Whenever I make rant videos like this, just kind of talking about the game, I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you guys think about this whole situation. I'm posing the question to you guys. Do you think Star Citizen is the WoW of space games? Let me know in the comments down below. You guys have been awesome, killing it on the videos, liking, subscribing, doing all that stuff. The channel has been continually blowing up, and I want to thank you guys. Seriously, the support you guys have been showing on the content is tremendous, and yeah, I can't thank you enough. So IEE just ended. Um, it has been an absolutely crazy couple of weeks for the community. I go on Reddit and you know I haven't seen so much people on the Star Citizen subreddit as I have since CitizenCon. It's been like it's usually like between 1,000 to 1,500 people. Now it's like 3,000 to 4,000 people averaging on the subreddit, and that's insane. So it's the subreddit has more than doubled in size since CitizenCon. And that's really exciting because it means that the community is alive, the community is ready for this game, the community is excited about everything that's happening, and we're putting all of our effort into testing, into supporting the project, giving the devs suggestions. Stuff like that really matters to make the game as best that it can be. People are already talking about 322. 322 is going to be a big patch as CIG slowly trickles out content about this game. I think it's going to be an incredible year ahead of us. So yeah, decompress after IAE. There was a lot of stuff going on. This video is just kind of a talking video, so we can look back on everything that's going on, and then next is just more exciting stuff. So yeah, be prepared to be excited about all that content coming out pretty soon. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, you guys. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Like I always say at the end of these videos, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Salute.